What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Inside TCH Live podcast. I'm Ben Kirby alongside Greg Potter here. We're here to talk about all things TCH Live, all things live stream poker, basically whatever we want to talk about. Anyways, Greg, how's it going today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing just fine, Mr. Kirby. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Coming off of a very fun weekend out of town.
Yes.
That maybe we could talk about later. But
Yes.
We have a very fun podcast for everyone today because later on in the show, we both got to sit down with Lex O Poker and talk about his rise to quote-unquote fame in the poker vlogger world. And that was a super fun one, as both of you and I have both had the chance to really get to know that guy because he's come through Dallas a couple times and was kind enough to give us a lot of his time prior to the live stream. So and speaking of poker vloggers in general, you especially, Greg, have a lot of, I would say, history with them. They have a ton of influence on your game and a lot of people's games these days. Maybe tell the people your history with the vloggers and maybe what those guys mean to you. Yeah,
so I did an interview a couple of months ago with True Poker Dealer where I broke down a little bit of this, where I talked about how I first got into poker. I started playing 1-2 grinding, whatever, and then I got to the point where I didn't have money to play. I had no responsible reason to be sitting down and gambling with the financial position I was in. I was in college. I was working 2 jobs. I was dead broke. I had no time on top of that. And I kind of filled the gap with watching poker bloggers. And I just so happened to come across Andrew Neeme, right when he started. I think I started watching him on episode 4 or 5, one of the really early ones. And I then proceeded to watch every single video that came out over the next couple of years. Until recently, I don't really watch a ton of poker content off clock now, just because my life is so inundated with it at this point. Mm-hmm. But it was a great way to scratch the itch where I could kind of live vicariously through these people. And they were also the first introduction that I had into the fact that poker could be played professionally. People can actually do this for a living. And these were 2 dudes that were documenting that, or at least their story to go along with it. Because as soon, after I found Andrew's vlog, I very quickly found Red Owen's vlog. And those guys were and still are in many respects a huge influence on where I am at today. I watched so much of their content. It was funny. We got to meet them when they came to TCH Live. And I felt like we had the same kind of conversation with Lex, where it's I feel like I've already known these guys, at least for a little while, right? I've heard hours and hours and dozens of hours of their voices and seeing their videos over and over, and then they get to meet me for the first time. But they were a huge inspiration for me diving into the poker world, and it was a pretty awesome experience getting to actually finally meet them in person, because I didn't get to go to any meetup games. I wasn't playing poker consistently enough to justify traveling to go to their meetup games at the time. But from the beginning, from the get-go, those guys had a massive influence on my decision to become a professional poker player. I think I had that decision internally down, I can pin it down to the moment I was watching an Andrew Neeme vlog, where I was just this is what I want to do. I was in my senior year of college. No idea really what I wanted to do with my degree. I had some idea, but then other complications got in the way of me following through on that. I used to want to do a lot of field work for environmental science. And then I injured my back, and a lot of those things kind of went out the door, at least a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do. And I started to lose interest in it really altogether. And then I found these poker vlogs, and then now my life is what it is today. So it was pretty cool. And actually, when we had a meetup game with them down in Austin, right, that I got to play it. I actually got to play against these dudes that I had essentially idolized for 3-4 years. And after the game, after we played, which I have more of their money than they have of mine, so we're on the up and up for that. But after
not to be results oriented,
totally not. after one session of maybe 2 or 3 hands apiece.
Sample size is outstanding.
Sample size is massive. Totally can draw statistical significance from it. But I offered to give them a ride back just because I had my car there, and they were gonna Uber and pay $40. I was like, why don't you do that when I could trap these guys in a car for a little bit and go pick their brains for a little while. And they are such 2 entirely cool dudes, so down to earth. They're just like regular Joe Schmoes, man. And they were happy. I don't know if they were happy there. It seemed honestly kind of exhausted. And then they had this one dude just blasting questions at him once again. But I got to tell them about how much, they inspired me to do what I do. And they seem like they are genuinely happy that they're having such a massive influence on the poker community in general. Because we see those effects firsthand whenever they come to TCH or come to any live stream. They blow up casinos. Casinos are poker rooms are so busy they barely know how to handle it. The wait lists are massive. The viewership on our live stream tripled in one night, just because of the Brad Owen and Neeme effect. It's they show up on camera and people just flock to them, understandably, because they put out great content and they're just 2 really chill dudes.
Yeah, and it's crazy that they. There was a lot of things that played in their favor. Kind of timing played in their favor. Their consistency made them successful. Their personalities in some way made them more successful than others. Because poker is one of those things that you don't have to be good looking or even super funny. If you can consistently put out content that, like you said, scratches the poker itch for people, they'll be loyal to you for hours and hours and hours. And there's very few, kind of when Andrew and Brad started, there were very few people that were putting out relatable type content. There was the Daniel Negreanu's of the world, but nobody could relate to that. And then there was kind of a chasm between the us and them. And so these guys came in and started just videoing any other normal 1-2 experience or 2-5 experience. And for some reason, the way they put it together allowed them to blow up into these they're poker celebrities in a weird kind of way. And it's I guess I'm reiterating what you're saying. It's a shocking effect that those guys have anytime they do a meetup game. It's just all of these average Joes show up because these 2 guys, there's a lot of poker vloggers now that are popular, but those 2 guys specifically, I guess, mean a lot to a lot of different types of people because I think you're not a unique story. Many people got serious about poker because watching those vlogs. And it's cool to get to meet those guys and to be validated hey, these are just regular dudes that play great poker, but also are willing to sacrifice. They're making money now. They're doing pretty well for themselves now. But on the front end, you have to sacrifice, and David probably knows, you have to sacrifice a lot of time to put together a video that people aren't going to destroy. Especially poker players. One, they're dissecting your poker play to the most minute detail, and then they're also dissecting your format and your production value, all that kind of stuff. And so to keep doing that for years is pretty impressive.
It really is. And we're seeing a little bit of a drop off with Andrew specifically. He's focusing on other things right now. Brad is maintaining number 1 spot, right? And then because he's got 500,000 followers now, 550,000 followers, something outrageous, which is
on YouTube, subs,
yeah, exactly. Which is congratulations to him, because that is genuinely a Herculean feat for something like poker that is so unrelatable to so many people that are gambling, whatever. But the other thing that I think really allowed them to be so successful is that they weren't the first poker vlog. That, from what I understand, I don't remember who it was the very first one.
The Trooper.
Yeah, the Trooper.
He was one of the first guys,
He created this concept that was a novelty, and then they really ran with it and made it their own. They were some of the first people to pioneer recording hands from a first person kind of view, and then on top of that, they were willing to put themselves out there in a way where they're breaking down their hands and their thought process for why they're doing stuff.
And showing their losses. And
showing the losses was a huge thing. It's it's one thing to say oh, here, watch me flop quads 5 times and get the max.
Right.
That's fun sometimes, but the bringing it down to earth makes it so much more relatable. And these guys, I think, really tapped into that, especially just because they know that they were 2 schmoes. They were 2 random poker players that were random guys trying to make this poker thing work for them. And they wanted to convey that message to everybody else. And they like really went out on a limb, and it just happened. Like both of them basically started playing poker. They kind of came up like right after the 2009-10 boom, where like, they saw, or the early aughts boom, that where like they saw Moneymaker do all these things, and then
3, 4, and 5, 2003, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they were a result of that. And then now it's so interesting to see that they are creating a new wave of poker players because of the inspiration that they've given to so many others. And on top of that, we're seeing like the Lex O's and the Rampages and all these other guys follow as a result, because they're like, oh, these guys not only can play poker professionally, but they can monetize these poker vlogs and
hedge themselves a little bit.
Absolutely, because being a full-time poker player, just being a poker player, is beyond stressful, and just very difficult to do. It's like you have to have so much discipline with your money management. It's actually like really difficult. And so they see these two guys that do it, and they had a flooding of new vloggers. And Next Gen Poker is another good example. I had friends that made a vlog that had a like small cult following for a while. And it's just cool to see like who is taking off and who is kind of like, behind a little bit. We also have Wolfgang Poker and all of these other guys, Poker Bunny, Bet on Drew, all these new people that are just like trying to get a piece of the vlogger world now.
And it's interesting. There's a space for all of them too. Like I don't think we're reaching the tipping point of how much content poker players want to consume. Like they're people that are watching Next Gen are also still watching Brad and Andrew and Lex O and Wolfgang. Like everyone that watches poker vlogs pretty much knows all the poker vlog names. It's just an interesting kind of cultural thing that's happening in the poker world.
Yeah, I mean it's also like, I think that's also kind of a good thing, right? It's there's plenty of like highlight videos and et cetera, but most vloggers can get out one video a week, and they're usually like 15 to 20 minutes long, depending on how much content they produced within that week, how much they played, how much time they had to edit, et cetera, et cetera. And so I remember being like itching, like, all right, when's the next Brad on Lower going to come out? When's the next Andrew Neeme vlog going to come out? Like literally looking forward to watching those. And so if there are 4 main poker vloggers you watch and they each put out a 15-minute video once a week, like that may on its surface sound like a lot of content, but it really isn't, right? It's like one episode of Breaking Bad or something like that. It's one HBO TV episode worth of poker content every week. And so there is still plenty of room for people to come into the poker vlogging universe, and plenty of space to be filled, as you said.
And that's really what, in my opinion, that's what's helping to continue growing the game. There's Poker Go, which is behind a paywall, which is great for those that have been poker fans since 2003 or whatever. But the only way, or the best way, for people to find this game and to learn that there's like other elements to it is, really like what's on YouTube. And the vlogs are the most like genuine, detailed form of poker content I think that you can find out there. Like Poker Go is great.
That's for free. Yeah.
But also new players are never going to pay for Poker Go if they're just like kind of interested in checking the game out.
Yeah, that was one thing that I thought to mention, but didn't actually, was that the fact that it's free content. Like that, I think, is the most important aspect, is that it is so approachable. It's like you can get Jonathan Little breaking down hands all day for poker strategy, but it's behind pokercoaching.com because he's monetized it, which as he should. I don't think any professional poker player is in the business of making everybody else better poker
for
players.
Charity. Yeah.
So at least for free. And so it was just so cool to see these guys doing this in such a way where it's like they're not like breaking down ranges all the time. They're not like pulling up Pio or anything like that. They're not running a hand through the solver for you or talking about the implications of doing X, X, Y, Z when you could do something else. They explain their thought process in a pretty simplified way, like a lot of the time, to where, as you said, if somebody wants to check out this poker thing, they can see how a professional does it.
Yeah.
But they don't see like the real hard nitty gritty strategy that goes into getting to that point and why they made those decisions and stuff, which comes from things like, coaching sites and personal coaching and paywalls, Poker Go, et cetera, et cetera. So,
yeah. And there's also the real life element that you get in vlogs, and we can get into the interview here shortly, but it's kind of intimidating to go sit down at a live card game for the first time, and the vlogs make it where you can at least get a picture of what it's going to be like, or at least what the tactile things to expect, the sounds and stuff to expect, which, if you were watching high stakes poker or even the World Series on ESPN, you just didn't you had no way of knowing what it was going to take to get from the car to the actual table and play. And so the vlogs made it a real kind of end-to-end experience.
That is also true. They're not just breaking down the hands. They show half the time, the biggest thing to do, Johnny Vibes did this a lot, where it's he would just record himself on the way to the poker room, the drive, and his thought process going into mentally preparing to sit down and play a game of poker, risking hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. And then they show you getting on the wait list. They show you going to the cage, grabbing chips. They show you sitting at the table, and you get you kind of get all the sounds and as you said, the tactile experiences as well. That I didn't have before I walked into a poker room for the first time. I still remember. I think I've told you this before. My first time walking into a casino poker room was mind blowing, because the wall of sound that hits you from all the chips shuffling and the cards riffling and everything else, it's an experience. It really is, if you've never done it before, and it's incredibly intimidating if you have next to no experience doing it. I remember my hands were shaking when I was throwing in my first bet, and I had another guy at the table who was chatting me up. He could very much tell it was my first time. And he was just come on, man, do it with some confidence, put the bet out there and everything. I was just hell yeah, let's go, And so I remember the hand I had, it was pocket jacks, and I was scared to raise with a very premium hand and things like that. So I do think the vlogging experience, from a viewer standpoint, really helps alleviate some of that initial stress. Yeah,
and it's kind of as you're saying that, it's a lot like going into a gym for the first time. If you're deciding to work out, it's what's the etiquette here? What are these machines? Who people are looking at me in a way that I do not appreciate.
Exactly.
So all that to say is the vlogs are good for that, for kind of maybe breaking that wall a bit before you go and get in your first live game. And speaking of getting your first live game, we got the chance to talk to Lex O Poker, who's one of the newer vloggers in the scene. I would say newer because he started 8 months ago, and he's got tens of thousands of subscribers. He's on a major heater coming off of his trip from Vegas. Yeah, and he's a former CrossFit athlete, professional CrossFit athlete. Before that, he was a collegiate wrestler. This dude is fit still and is incredibly disciplined, as you'll hear in the interview. But yeah, he was kind enough to spend a few minutes with us. Lex, thanks for coming on the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again.
I'm in Texas for at least a month, so I'm excited to be here.
Welcome back, man. I saw that you had a quick run in Vegas. How did that go for you?
I put out 6 vlogs while I was there, and it was pretty amazing. Pretty good trip, for sure. The upswing was definitely needed, for sure.
When a vlogger is sheepishly smiling about how good he did, it usually means he ran pretty freaking well.
Yeah. No, it was good because Vegas games are notoriously nitty tight, and
the buy-ins are lower.
Was amazing. I've never seen them like that. Yeah.
Did you play any tournaments, or did you?
No tournaments. I just wanted to stick to cash. I'm I don't want to spend an entire day and a half, 2 days to bubble a tournament while I'm only out there for
just get
2
pissed.
Yeah, of course. Exactly, yeah. If I was there for maybe 2 months, then I would do it, but only for 2 weeks or something, I'm just not going to do it.
Right. So you were in Vegas for how long?
I was there for 17 nights.
How was that experience?
Interesting. So I don't know if you follow my Instagram, 1 or 2 of you guys, I don't know. But
I do, yeah.
So I don't know if you saw my breakfast situation. I don't know if I should say this now on camera because they might not let me do it next time, but I'm just I just need to have a good breakfast, a good lunch, good dinner, or I'm just going to be hangry, Yeah, so I'm instead of going to Denny's every day, walking 10 minutes down the strip, getting eggs, bacon, spending $10, I'm going to get a little hot skillet, and I'm going to bring it to Vegas. So I have this like little skillet thing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make my eggs and my bacon, and then I'll have a bagel. And the first morning,
Just buy groceries.
did that for 17 mornings, but it was good, you know, it worked out. 17 mornings of bacon.
Nice. Well, let's go back a significant amount of time. So I didn't realize this, but you only started vlogging like 8 months ago.
Yeah,
according
February
to YouTube.
15th was my first video.
For maybe the people that maybe don't follow you or know about your vlog, just give us a brief history, like to run down about how you got into this 8 months ago and all that.
So I was starting an Instagram for poker. I wanted to start like a poker Instagram to just track my progress and stuff like that. So I started that, I think in March, or sorry, when would that be? I think it was a couple months before the vlog, and I'm like, one day I'm just gonna go in there, I'm going to just video my sessions and see what happens. I put it on YouTube, I got like 3,000 views. I did another video like 3 days after, and then I kind of got like addicted to the process of like making a video, editing the video, then publishing it, getting the, you know, the dislikes, the likes, and all that stuff. So it kind of came like a goal, like a competition for myself, you know.
You also chose like a pretty opportune time to come into the vlogging scene, just because like COVID was still in full swing. Brad and Andrew weren't putting out content.
Yeah, they weren't putting as much out. And
really at all, for the most part. And then
so I was able to kind of sweep in there, and I was lucky that I was in South Florida in Miami, which is a pretty like populous area. People like to be in would like to go visit or like to play poker, and I was able to do videos there. Which is pretty cool.
Sweet. How has starting the vlog and going through the vlogging process changed Lex O's poker game? Because going back through your hands in such a granular way is like you give yourself so much more evaluation.
I feel like to get better at poker, you need to have other people telling you like what I think you should do, or what I think you did this not the best, or I think you did this well. But like thinking back at yourself, you're like, oh, that sounds good, because you made the decision. And you're like, yeah, I think that's a good bluff because I thought of it. But like if I think the best way would have 5 people in a room saying, I think you should have bet this, or I think you should have checked here, I think you should have done that. So I think it's helped a little bit with my poker game, but I mean,
your biases can be powerful.
Yeah, of course. Like you're thinking, well, I think this is okay play because I thought of it, you know? But,
Self-awareness is a powerful tool though as well. It's like we play 80 hands, 120 hands in a couple of hours in a session. You can't remember all of them, and you might have been only involved in 10. But sometimes, like when you start looking at every decision, every street of the hand, like it
definitely helps.
You get to see all your mistakes in real time.
And then it helps to have the people in the comments that are like, you played this hand terribly. Like,
you with 100% confidence.
I had a bunch of people in the beginning, like when I first came out, before I said this is what I did for a living, or that I brought myself from 1-2 up. They're like, you should go back down to 1-2. Like, for sure.
And never come back.
Don't play 5-10. Like multiple people, just like the same guy over and over again, like, go to 1-2. You're not good enough for this, and it could be true. I mean, they're
typing that from the 50-cent dollar table on ACR,
or they play online free tournaments or whatever. So Facebook at poker.
Zynga Poker. So that's a pretty quick rise to like, I don't know, notoriety. You know, this is kind of a niche space to be like. I wouldn't, people know your name now after 8 months of doing this. Like, what does that feel like?
I was just talking to my brother about that, like I wrestled for like 15 years, and I was never like at the top of wrestling where people would know my name. Like, you guys probably wouldn't recognize some wrestlers' names, but like there's probably 20, 30 guys that you could say, hey, this guy's here, and everyone's going to be like, oh, I love him, he's awesome, you know? So I wasn't able to get there in wrestling, and then I was a competitive CrossFitter for like 8 years, and I couldn't quite get to that point either where people would be like, oh, that's Lex O, he's a really good CrossFitter. So to be kind of like, I guess, noticed in the poker scene is cool. Like, I've never actually gotten to that point in a competitive sport before, you know? So it's fun, but it also is like kind of stressful too, because you kind of have to be on. Like, you can't just ever have a off day where you snap at somebody and you're like, no, don't talk to me. Like, I have to work on that personally. Like, it's very difficult for me to be constantly like talking to people and having good conversations and being happy to see new people. So
a good YouTuber is not always like a bona fide extrovert, and so like this could be draining for, like, we've seen vloggers come through here all the time. When you walk through a room full of poker players that notice you, It can be pretty draining.
I haven't done a meetup game yet, but I was here for the Brad and Andrew meetup game, and I could just imagine like.
Oh, you can see it on their faces by the end of the day.
Yeah, they're just drained because like people are constantly asking them
Y and Z.
You're just kind of getting. I mean, it's awesome. Like I like all the fans. Like it's cool that all these people are watching. I can't believe that 30, 40, 50,000 people are watching my videos and that a million people are watching Brad's. Like it's crazy, but it's also, it is like you have to work on it, like try to get better, just like anything, you know? Yeah.
How was that in Vegas? Like, is this the first time in Vegas since your vlog has kind of blown up?
It was my second time. The first time I went there, like oddly, like not many people said anything to me. But this time, I'm fine with it.
You got to play poker.
Yeah, I think that time I maybe was at like 10,000 subscribers, so it wasn't as big. And I think it's more in like in the Florida, Texas area, which is where my videos were. So this second time during the WSOP was a little bit bigger because I was trying to engage with other vloggers too. So I was around them, which then caused more people to be like, oh, I know your videos. I think I've watched it before. So. It's definitely something I'm not used to, for sure.
Yeah, I get that a lot around here just because, I mean, like, people recognize us, but I'm here so much more often, right, than you are. And so, like, I'm actually playing in the streets, and I've had, like, especially on, like, this past Sunday when we had 1 million people here for the 1-year anniversary, like, people were coming up and talking to me, and I'm just like, I'm, like, caught off guard by it.
They recognize your voice. Like, I recognize both of your voices, and I'm like, I've heard that before. Yeah. The same thing people are thinking when they hear me or Brad or when they hear you speak at the table. They're like, man, I hear him speaking all the time, and he's great.
And it's a strange phenomenon because it almost like we feel like we know you or know a part of you by, you know, when you spend
hours with you in some way.
And then I have no idea who these people are.
It's like, dude,
like some guy like shakes my hand and hugs me, and he's like, man, such a fan of your vlogs, been watching from day one. And I'm like, what's your name?
A stranger, you're a legitimate stranger.
I mean, I feel the same way when I see other guys or even other like genres of YouTubers. Like you watch them, you see their face, you see their whole life. Like it's pretty interesting. And then they don't know who you are, but they're like trying to be nice to you.
But also they benefit. I mean, you benefit from having like a huge platform and having people know you, because that's the tension. It's like it's objectively annoying especially when you're stuck to have people come up to you and try to like shoot the breeze with you, but also it's like, dude, it's pretty nice to have a ton of subs.
I know. It's like it's definitely pluses and minuses. Like I had that maybe on my last trip here where I was just stuck a ton of money on a session and just not running well. And then like I think a couple people were just asking me like the same questions, like one at one table, another at another table. Yeah. And I really had to try to just like, you know, okay, just you gotta be
chill, man.
Yeah, gotta be nice. Like I don't just want to leave. And
there was one day that I was here and I was stuck like 4K, and I was like, I had several people ask me questions about the stream or about Buildo, like a subject I already don't like talking about anyway. And I have to just like bite my tongue so hard because I don't want to snap at anybody, but I'm not in a good mood, and I just don't always want to deal with it.
I have to give it to like every time I've seen Brad. And I've seen Andrew a couple of times, but like I put in one of my videos and on my Instagram that Brad like came up to me at Bellagio and it's like, hey, you want to get a drink? And I'm like, dude, I can't believe, because like I wouldn't think of doing that now to another vlogger, you know, that he's met me here, but he doesn't really know much about me. So I'm like, all right, that's like the guy I'm going to try to, you know, portray whenever I'm in the poker streets, you know, trying to.
He's just trying to get drinks with the competition. Trying to figure out.
Just trying to feel them out.
It's like, am I at risk here? Is my channel at risk here? But So, what about Texas? So, I mean, what brought you here? What's kept you coming back?
What brought him here? What brought him here?
And how long you staying around? What's your plan?
Out so you can see here.
Yeah.
I actually don't remember. The first time I played was at Greg's table.
Yeah.
Like right here.
I had no idea who you were.
Yeah. And I was like, I think back in March, I don't actually remember what made me want to come here. I think it was watching the live streams. I'm pretty sure that was it. Watching the live streams and stuff, and I'm like, I got to go check out Dallas.
That was when it was starting to kind of get real heated.
That's when it was really
Tuesday
blown
nights.
up. Yeah. Yeah, with Buildo.
I think another reason was because I was filming vlogs and kind of backstory, so obviously filming at the table at some casinos is like, most casinos is prohibited. You can't film.
Yeah, you can't.
But vloggers just do it undercover all the time. Like they put the camera here, they put the camera there, whatever. And I did it at Hard Rock for 13 episodes or 13 vlogs, and they recognized me in a video, told the manager. The manager then came up to me and was like, "Hey, Lex, you can't film anymore." So I'm like, I'm screwed.
Sweet.
Like my vlog is over. That's it.
Yeah.
So I called here and I'm like, "Hey, can I film here?" And they looked at my channel and they're like, yeah, come out, whatever. Sure. So I came out here. I think that was a big reason. Then I was here for 3 days and I'm like, this place is awesome. Like the action's sick, the people are fun, dealers are great. So
what is like? I mean, obviously there are some very distinct differences in playing poker here in Texas and in other rooms, but what are the ones that jumped out to you when you first got here, other than like the fact that you could film?
Distinct differences, I think this is actually I think the difference between like here in Florida is that like, obviously there's more money on the table here than there would be in a Florida game. And I actually think that the players are not as good in Florida, so it's a little bit easier. I think the players are somewhat kind of better here because they're so deep stack. Like,
they're just used to
you have to play,
stack.
if you're playing $3,000 deep, you have to know what's going on. Like if you're playing $400 deep, you can just shove and whatever. So I noticed that like people had a ton of money and they didn't, like they maybe weren't making the best plays, but they weren't making the worst plays
Horrible
either.
plays either,
so it is still tough. And then a huge thing is like going like 6 ways to every flop, you know, or like I'm used to going heads up or 3 ways, and now it's like 50 call, the dealer calls, and you're like, oh my God.
You have to really account in your strategy how to go around that. It's very different.
And I came from Vegas where it was like hard to even get a call, you know, so like.
That seems so counter. Like it's the pinnacle of a gambling town, but the poker game specifically. I mean, I guess if you get past the 2-5 level, it's just filled with pros.
You have to just be careful. Like that's, you know, there has to be a good mixture of recreational players and people that have disposable income and stuff. Where in Vegas it was just like all the pros rose to the top, and then everyone else filtered away, and then it was just pros at the best level. Like
and that's
it's a culture thing too. I noticed like. The culture here is in all Texas rooms that I've been to is like fun, talkative, like splashy. It would be a word that I would use, you know, like. And in Vegas, and even other places, it's not splashy. So that's a huge thing. That's fun.
I went to Vegas for the first time this past August, and I was legitimately disappointed. Like I told him about it.
Yeah.
It's like, one, I didn't like Vegas for Vegas, and then two,
it's
the poker was seedy at best.
Well, you went at it's a difficult time because the pandemic and everything.
Right, so maybe I didn't get it
like
in its full splendor, and I didn't have a tour guide or anything to show me the hot spots. And so,
but on the surface, it's pretty seedy. That smell hits you, and you're like, all right.
I literally came off.
This is not Dallas anymore.
I came off the plane and was staring at slot machines in the airport. Had never seen anything like that. And so, it's sitting down at those games, man. People don't talk. I mean, I'm already a pretty talkative guy at the tables anyway. Like, I had to, like, claw people out of
everybody has an
quiet,
iPad,
man. Yeah.
Watching movies.
Watching movies or all have earbuds in. I'm like, this sucks.
They're just not... And this is in other card rooms too, and of course you're going to get a table like that here where it's a bunch of guys that maybe don't want to speak or don't want to talk, and sometimes I'm in the mood too where like I'm not a very talkative person, but sometimes I like to be at a talkative table.
Yeah.
And I noticed that here, especially at this room, like everyone's having fun, you know, everyone's happy to be here even if they are down money. They're like, all right, you know, bomb pot, let's go.
Let's go. Let's go.
Got to win it back somehow. I'm interested to learn about your progression. I mean, because you started making vlogs doing 1-2 and 2-5-ish.
Well, I started the vlog technically at like a couple vlogs at 2-5, but I had been playing 5-10 at that time for like 6 months. But I started way back, like broke player at 1-2.
Yeah,
you
so
know?
like I'm interested to hear about that progression because not everybody can do that. Like to be I guess I'd be curious to know what was your biggest, I don't know, multiplier of success to go from 1-2 up to, I've seen you play 10-25.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, people can do it if they have the money. Like, anybody can go sit down at this game and just put 10K down and play. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be able to consistently play and make money, like, over the long term. So I think the biggest thing, I said this in my vlog way back in the days of like how I moved my way up, was just like putting in a ton of hours, like 150 to 200 hours a month of just like grinding poker, trying to get better, trying to like learn from my mistakes, and then obviously be frugal with my money and like not spend it. I'm lucky too where I don't have a ton of bills because I've kept things like not having a bunch of bills. I don't have kids, I'm not married yet, so it's like I don't have to spend all this money like some other people might. But you know, it's just your sacrifices that you make, you know.
So a level of discipline that most people, I don't think, at least in the poker world, are prepared to display. Like, I mean, it's hard, especially when you're like, you know, you're buying in 3K deep or whatever. Money starts to feel like it loses value a bit.
Yes.
And to live frugally outside of that.
Whenever
is
you go
opposite.
on 5K swings in 2 days,
right,
money loses its meaning a little bit. And
you have to be ready for that. Like when you go on a 10K upswing, not to just go and it's not to just go and like splurge all your money on something, you know what I mean? Like it is tough because you're going to go on a 10K downswing too, and you need to have that bankroll there. And I think obviously my parents like taught me to be frugal. We were like middle-ish class where we lived, so like we weren't just spending money crazy all the time too, so they kind of taught me on my way up. And then I was like dead broke in college, where I had to like take the change out of my Jeep and go get a sandwich.
Man, that was me last year.
It was rough, you know what I mean?
Or buy the skillet.
Yeah, the skillet would cost $37. I couldn't pay for that. I was like, you know, my mom had helped me out, but like I was working and I had to pay for college, rent, car, all that stuff, and it was like, so when you go from being broke to like having money and having a little bit more, you're like, okay, I gotta hold on to this and not just be stupid with it.
On the converse side of that is that sometimes when you go from no money to having excess, it's easy to become detached from it and then just spend it willy-nilly, especially if you've been like broke your entire life, you've never had money to manage. So that can be a huge hump that people have to get over. My coach's biggest thing, he said the number one reason that the majority of poker players fail is not because they're bad poker players, it's because they don't know how to manage their money. And like you hear stories all the time of people, these crazy poker players that are $700,000 in debt to some nut job because they couldn't manage their bankroll well.
Or stay away from the craps table.
Exactly.
Like if anybody's like trying to come up in the poker world, like you're grinding 1-2 and you're like, there's a ton of people who want to try to make poker their career, and like to do only poker is like extremely hard. Like I wouldn't recommend it for a lot of people. Like,
just like emotionally, like to have.
It's very difficult to like make your entire life and your entire income solely based off poker. Like you want to have different like streams of revenue. You want to have a different job. You want to have different stuff like that. So, but if you're trying to become a poker player, like the biggest thing is bankroll management. Like not spending your money, like really trying to save it, and obviously trying to get better at the game too.
Yeah, Jonathan Little's Bankroll Bible is pretty solid too.
Yeah, I agree.
So Lex, we've only got a couple minutes left. I guess the last question is, what's next for you? What's the future look like? What are your goals? You know, what does the future look like for Lex?
As for now, I'm here in Dallas. I don't know when this video is coming out, but I'm here for the next like month. And then I may stay a little bit longer because I like it here, and it's nice to be out of Florida for a little bit.
Sure.
So I may stay another couple months, and I also want to check out LA at some point. So I either am gonna drive there or fly there to LA and try to make videos there. And then I was thinking about doing a vlog, like something like this in the future, of like trying to put out the idea of being like the biggest poker vlogger, like just to set it out there. Like, of course, I'm way behind all these other guys, but people kind of like when you put out a goal and you're like, I want to be, you know, at some time, the biggest poker vlogger of all the poker vloggers, you know what I mean? Like, when it comes to YouTube, that's kind of my goal. I know it's a long way away and it's going to take a lot of work, but like, eventually, maybe if I keep pushing how Brad has and Andrew and all these other guys, I can get to that, you know, top level where you're competing for that top spot when it comes to poker vlogging.
Consistency seems like that's the key, and it seems like you're the type of guy to do it. Not to flatter you, but also it seems like a pretty regimented, disciplined guy. And, you know, that YouTube game, it's all about consistency. All right, for people that maybe don't follow you now, how can they find you on the internet?
Instagram, Lex O Poker. YouTube is just Lex space O Poker. And I don't really use my Facebook. I don't use Twitter. Not going to give you guys my cell phone number yet.
Feel free.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Nice, man. Well, hey, we appreciate you doing this for us, and good luck out there.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Big shouts out to Lex O Poker for spending all that time with us and doing the interview coming through TCH Live. Check out that episode. It's the 5510 from last Wednesday. I'll have David put the date. I can't remember what the date was, but Lex O played on the stream. 5510 did great. Really great guy.
Yeah.
And always great to meet another vlogger. They're always good for the game, always good for the viewership. So we really appreciate him doing that. This is the Inside TCH Live podcast, but we've got plenty of other content coming, as well as the From the Felt podcast with our owner, Ryan and Bill Hewer. TCH is partnered with Next Gen Poker, speaking of the up-and-coming vloggers, that for their own podcast. You can get links in the description to subscribe to all those different pieces of content. And, of course, you can subscribe to TCH Live. Check us out. We're 6-7 nights a week of live stream poker. So plenty of content for all of your poker needs. Greg, man, thanks for doing the podcast today. Hope you have a great week, man.
As always, thank you, Mr. Kirby. Appreciate your time.
And we will see y'all on the next one.